Hello, everyone. Welcome to DVS's IBA Spotlight series, a series where we are highlighting some of the amazingly talented early career folks who were shortlisted in the Information is Beautiful Awards. My name is Cedric Larry. I am the Early Career Director. I will now let our Early Career Engagement Lead, Mayamiko Mendamenda, and our guest, Annika Zitto, take the stage.
Thank you very much, Cedric, for the introduction. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is Annika Zitto. Annika is a graphic designer who aims to use visual communication, whether through educational content, information design, books, or identities to help people connect to important information and causes. Annika, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself and get into your project?
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. All right. And then we will be able to get right into it. Okay, so can you see my screen all right? Okay.
Yes, perfect.
All right. Okay, so I'm Annika, and I'm going to tell you today about how I broke into the Data Visualization Society. So, hi, I'm Annika, and I don't think I'm supposed to be here. But since I am, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. So I grew up in Pennsylvania. I also went to school in PA. I got my Bachelor of Science in Visual Communication Design from Thomas Jefferson University. I'm currently interning at the Creative Media Lab of Princeton University Press and doing freelance work as well. And this year, I was shortlisted for the 2024 Information is Beautiful Awards. So how did I get here? So I'm going to mention that I have always been obsessed with infographics or data visuals before I even really knew the term data visualization. When I was in elementary school, my favorite website in the world was Scale of the Universe 2. Definitely check it out if you've never seen it, but not right now because you'll never be able to pay attention to my talk. Basically, it shows the scale of the universe. I showed this to my elementary school 4th grade class and apparently had to be stopped because I tried to explain what the human egg was to a bunch of 4th graders. But we can continue past that. I also had, as a kid, this book, The Visual Miscellaneum, which is this big book of different data visuals. And after I got my shortlist, it was really great to look at the back of this book that I had as a kid and see Information is Beautiful credited. It was like a full circle moment for me. So yeah, as a kid, I was also the middle schooler who loved editing the fonts on my Google documents. So it makes sense that I ended up going to school for graphic design. I went to Thomas Jefferson and, as I mentioned before, got my BS in visual communication design. So while I was there, I learned, the strong graphic design principles, visual hierarchy, typography, color theory, user research, emotional engagement, all of these things which are core to graphic design, but also, of course, very important for visual communication design. And when I talk to people about what I am doing and my goal as a graphic designer, I often say that I aim to bring clarity to complex information. So, of course, this ties to data viz very tightly as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some experience before I talk about my main project. While I was in undergrad, I had the opportunity to have 3 different research assistantships, and all 3 of them had this kind of data viz tie to them. So the first one is this orange peel bioplastic research. I did this with Dr. Radhika Bhaskar of Jefferson's engineering department. Now, I had no connection to the engineering department, except for the fact that Dr. Bhaskar was my systems thinking professor. And I happened to be one of those students who actually paid attention, did my work, and was actually engaged with the class. And I guess this So basically with this research, what we were doing is making bioplastic out of orange peels and textile waste. And the idea was that we would have this workshop for K-12 students, teaching them how to do the same thing. So what I was doing is I created this workbook with different instructions for the students, with these clear visuals showing each step, and also some different stats and infographic type things showing the importance of environmental acts like making bioplastics. So I'm going to do these takeaways as I talk through things. And so my first takeaway for this project is be engaged in class or anything you're doing. It actually does help you. For me, it got me a job. The next project is Project Data Sense, also with a Jefferson professor, Renee Walker. This project, I'm actually going to just show the website, is this multi-sensory data visualization or data experience is the way to put it, because it's more than just visuals that we're looking at. The main project here that I was working on is this one about bird sounds. So basically, what we were doing is going into P5 and creating these sketches where you would plug in a bird's call, and then when you click on it, you get to see the visual react to the amplitude of the audio clip. So basically, the idea here is we have all of those visuals up there that are connected to the colors of the bird. And since you are engaging both the auditory and visual sensory channels, it helps you memorize the bird calls and connect them to the birds. I definitely know that in the process of making these, I had a better time memorizing the bird calls when I was looking at these and connecting those two things. Yeah. So if you want to see more about this project, I'll do a little plug. In the 5th Nightingale issue, there's an article, Seeing Bird Songs, that Renee did about this project. So yeah, it was a really cool project. And it was also my introduction to P5, which I use throughout the rest of the things I'm showing in this project. Really, I was just going in and editing the files that were in there and adjusting the colors and things, but it showed me the kind of, user-friendliness of P5 as this like browser-based software. I also happened to be getting into birding before I started doing this research assistantship. So that was a really fun way to bring my outside interests into graphic design data viz project. I was able to show Renee these places that I like to go birding and tell her about different organizations that are important for birding in Philly. So it was great to be able to feel helpful in that way and have my interests contribute. So my takeaway for this project is your outside interests are an important part of your skill set. And my final research assistantship was actually not at Jefferson. I studied abroad in Copenhagen, Denmark, and I did this research assistantship at DIS there called The Acoustic Ecology of Urban Bats with Inga Kiergaard and her research into the bat population of Copenhagen, especially urban bats. So I am going to show a video here that I created for research presentations for all of the different research opportunities that they had. That kind of shows the project that I did. Yeah, I'll just get into that because this kind of shows everything you need to know.
Hi, I'm Annika, and this is how I made a data visualization for bats at the Round Tower. So it all started with me getting my Excel sheet of the data of bats every week for a year on Mondays at the Round Tower.
I needed to make a visual that connected this with this bat species and whether they were present on those dates. So when I was thinking of the best way to display information about the Round Tower, I thought, why not make it round? I figured the best way to do it was to make a circular data visualization to represent time like a clock and the Round Tower. This is the first draft I made where each of those lines is a date and each of the colors shows a specific bat. I made a little key and the idea would be that if the circle's filled in, the bat was there. I then reached out to a professor from home who I did research with before, asking how we could use code to streamline this process. We ended up putting the data from the Excel sheet into a P5 file and got this first draft. From here, I decided to work on the colors. Now, originally I was working on making a palette based on the round tower, but it was not looking very accessible, so I ended up modifying it to get to this result. I then took this and made a modified version of the code. Here you can see me struggling to put the dates in, but we eventually got it to work like this. And this ended up being the final version with the dates. I took it into Illustrator to add the seasons and title and created a key, and this is the final result. Be sure to check out the rest of the research at the DIS Festival.
So yeah, that was that project. And this is the final visual for this specific part of the research. Unfortunately, I have to cover the names of the species of bats because we're still working on getting this published. But yeah, this was a really fun project. And also, it was great that I had Renee to reach out to help me plug this into P5, really streamline my process. Another thing I wanted to mention about this project is that these research assistantship positions were pretty limited for this study abroad school. So I knew that going into it, I would have to think about how I could stand out against all these other students, figuring that these positions would most likely be going to biology or urban studies students. And what I did is I kind of framed my essays that I had to write and said, your research could be really intriguing, really impactful, but if people can't understand it, people can't use the information, and it doesn't get funded, then how amazing can it really be? So, having data visualizations go along with these things can help you explain to potential grant donors and to the general public the importance of your work. And clearly that worked because I got the position. So takeaways here: rely on your connections, and how you frame yourself matters. Now, getting into Intermezzo the analysis, the reason that I am here. So a little bit of a background onto this project. So this was part of my creative mapping class taught by Renee Walker. See a theme here. And this was our third project of the semester, the Radical Cartography Project, where we were asked to visualize a data set of social, cultural, or political meaning in an interesting way. So kind of, using this, I could make a visual about anything I want as long as I could argue it fitting into one of those categories. And I happened to be really obsessed with this book, Intermezzo, at the time. So I had just read Normal People by Sally Rooney, and it absolutely wrecked me emotionally. No, but it was so good. So when I found out that she was releasing this book, Intermezzo, that same fall, I knew I had to go and get it. I was there at the bookstore the day it released. I even called the bookstore in advance to make sure that they were going to have a copy. And since I'm Gen Z, that means a lot that I actually called somebody. But clearly, as you can see from the number of tabs on this book, I really enjoyed the book. A little bit more about it. So it is by Sally Rooney, who's known for Normal People, Beautiful World, Where Are You, and Conversations with Friends. It's her latest contemporary fiction novel, and Sally Rooney in general is known for her kind of plain language or drawn back prose. It really feels conversational, the writing. To me, it feels like thoughts pulled out of, my own head. This book in particular is following these brothers, Ivan and Peter, after the passing of their father. Both of these characters are navigating these complicated romantic relationships, Ivan with an older woman and Peter with two different women. And the book switches between the perspective of Peter and his story, and then Ivan's story shown through the perspective of Ivan and Margaret, Margaret being Ivan's love interest. So one of the things that I noticed as I was reading the book is this strong difference between the way that Peter and Ivan's writing was shown. So Peter, he often had all these back and forth thoughts, these half sentences, and they were often, shown through short sentences. And Ivan, being a chess player, had these more drawn out analytical thoughts that were often expressed in long sentences. So going into this project, I was kind of thinking, how can I visualize Sally Rooney's unique writing style and these differences between the brothers that you can see in this writing? So for my process, I started, of course, by reading the book. And then I was looking for examples of what people typically do with quantitative literary analysis. I was thinking more quantitative data visuals would be interesting. And then, looking for data visualization versions of that as well, but really just getting into quantitative literary analysis in general, because it wasn't something I'd really done. Did some simple sketches like this, showing the basic concepts of language comparison that I wanted to do, and decided that the form I wanted the project to take was a book about a book. So I had all of this text to analyze, and I started looking for different softwares. And I was using these, browser-based tools that I found just from my initial searches. Like I said, I'd never really done this type of analysis before on text. And I quickly realized that these browser things were not going to cut it. There was just not enough customization, not enough different tools for me to use, and I couldn't get enough of the data in. So luckily, as I continued to search for different things to use, I came across this software called MaxQDA. So, literature reviews, mixed method analysis, interview analysis, things like that. I found MaxQDA to have an approachable website, honestly. And when I did my free trial, it had a user-friendly interface, which was helpful for someone who's never done this type of work before. They also had these interesting visualization tools that ended up being a source of inspiration as I started visualizing this data. And I actually just posted this blog post with MaxQDA talking about this project. So if you want to read that later, go ahead and check it out. And I also created a video showing my process there. So I'm going to show that quickly.
Hi, I'm Annika Zitto, and I created a data visualization book with the help of MaxQDA. My book, Intermezzo the Analysis, visually examines Sally Rooney's latest novel, Intermezzo. Her novel focuses on two brothers, Ivan and Peter, who are very different from one another, and my goal with the book was to see if I could visualize these differences. I visualized whose perspective is seen throughout the novel, the overall word usage, comparisons between the brothers' word usage, and the sentence lengths of the entire novel. I could not have sorted all this data without the help of MaxQDA. In the software, I sorted the 400 plus pages of the novel by chapter and character point of view. I used tags to identify specific words used and grouped thematically similar words together. I know my project is an unconventional use of MaxQDA, but I loved learning the software for this project. The visual tools were particularly helpful in creating visuals like the character POV map, which I based on the document portrait tool. You can see more about the project on my website at annikazitto.com/intermezzo. Hi, I'm Annika Zitto.
Make sure that's not playing anymore. Had to throw in that plug at the end, of course. All right. So MaxQDA was super helpful to me in gathering all of this data that I had to collect for this very long book, and really did provide a lot of inspiration for the project in general. You got to see a little bit of the book, but this is it in its final form. And I'm going to just show briefly the different sections and also go into detail about one of them. So the book is broken down into three main sections of visuals: structure, the words, and the sentences. So in the structure, this is kind of the basis for a lot of the data shown. This is a point of view map, which shows, for example, each of these boxes is a page of the book. So you have the entire book broken down here, and you can really quickly look at this and see the distribution of the different perspectives seen throughout the novel. And this color coding system is also used throughout. So this orangey peach color is Peter, this yellow is Ivan, and then this pink purple color is Margaret. This same structure is used for the first section of the words category, words throughout. So this is a thing, a visual showing the use of the word love, and there's a couple other different words it shows here. But basically the idea here is that each of the boxes shows a page of the book where this word is seen, and you can look at this and get a general idea of the distribution of certain themes throughout the story. So, maybe more emotional ending of the book based on the concentration of these squares. There was also a words frequencies section, and the idea here, it's similar data. It's also looking at the use of specific words and versions of them, but more showing it as a comparison between Peter and then Ivan and Margaret as this unified whole. It's slightly different data because, for example, if the word love was used twice on one page, that wouldn't have been represented in that first visual. But it's mostly, the same content, just framed in a different way for a different effect. I also have a token count section. So if you're not sure of what a token is, it's basically, like a word. But when these large language models are interpreting what a word is, they have different interpretations. So in the one that I was using, for example, let's take the word that's. Both that and the apostrophe S would be taken as separate tokens. Basically the idea here was that I visualized the top 75 tokens, and the idea is to show the kind of plain language aspect of the writing with that. Now getting into the sentences, the final section. This was, really the heart of the project and also the biggest pain to produce. So if you remember from my initial sketches, I had this goal of showing the difference between these average sentence lengths between Peter and Ivan. But the things I was running into, I had 400 plus pages of text to work with, didn't know how to get the sentence data, and I didn't know how I was going to visualize that data once I did have it. So in my initial search for different tools to use that I had shown earlier, I found a couple things that would give me, counts of the number of sentences or the average sentence length, but nothing that would be giving me, okay, sentence 1, 5 words. Next sentence, 6. Next sentence, 4, which would be how I would get that result I wanted. And I looked around for a lot of different tools and I just couldn't find one. So I ended up actually consulting ChatGPT. Now, I have my own qualms about ChatGPT. I'm still, a little bit of a Luddite about it sometimes. I will say that, it helped me create this tool that, based on my time and knowledge limitations during the creation of this project, I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So I asked it to help me make a text analysis tool that I could upload a document and it would give me the number of words in each sentence in order. So with a lot of tweaking and adjustments, it eventually gave me this working Python script where basically I could upload a document, and once I ran it, it would give me a comma delimited list of all of the sentences in that document in order. So really cool. And basically what I did is went into MaxQDA, took these coded sections of the text that I created, made a Word document for each section of the chapters and then the POV of each chapter, and uploaded those into the document. I won't bore you with the details here, but then I had to convert that into an Excel file, which was a pain, truly a pain. And resulted in this very long 12,401 line Excel sheet. The reason I needed this is because, once again, thank you, Renee. Renee helped me get this data into a P5 file. So basically was able to upload a CSV from that Excel sheet into P5, where it created this visual where each of those sentence lengths is represented as a line. And the different columns are broken down to have the proper color representation for each of the characters. So took this, saved this giant SVG, brought it into Illustrator, who was very mad at me for giving it this 12,000 line document and expecting it to run properly. Stretched it out so that it would go across different pages, brought that into InDesign, and received my final version. So yes, it worked. We got the sentences in, and it was so satisfying. It was so satisfying to have this part finished, because it was, this idea in my head that I went through all these different steps and trials to finally get to. And, the result, though, is it did work. You can see from this first section, Peter's sentences have a lot of these really short, little fragmented, short length sentences, versus Ivan and Margaret have these really long sentences. So you're seeing that thing that I wanted to show. And yeah, this is a whole section of the book. Goes chronologically left to right and down the page. I also created a little accordion version of the entire book in one line that would serve as a fun little bookmark. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the project outcome. So I met my initial goal, which is always great, but there were also all of these other cool things that happened. I learned new software. I got introduced to MaxQDA, and it was really interesting to use. I would love to think of another project that I could do something similar using the software. Then I got onto the Information is Beautiful Awards long list, which was really cool. And then after that, MaxQDA actually reached out to me to do a write-up about my experience using their software for the project, which is that video and blog article that I mentioned earlier. And then what I was never expecting to happen, my work was put onto the shortlist, which, yeah, it's crazy to me, considering the fact that I was submitting my projects the last day that you could submit them. I forgot that I hadn't done it, and I kept putting it off because I didn't feel like my work looked ready enough yet. And I finally was just like, okay, you know what, whatever, I'm going to do it. I'm going to submit. Clearly it worked. I got on the shortlist. It was very exciting. And the awards ceremony was happening in Miami. So of course, I had to go to Miami, and that was super fun. It was great time. I got to, dress up for the awards ceremony, talk with people at the cocktail hour, watch the presentations. We played games throughout. We did trivia. My table didn't win, but that's okay. And, I got to see my work up against all of these really amazing projects that people had. And then, of course, just in general, it's great to be at these kind of events because you get to talk to different people in the DVS community and just see what all different approaches to data viz people are taking, and everyone's different life path. So it's just great to be able to connect to the community in that way. And of course, final outcome is I'm now talking to you all. So that's pretty cool. So takeaway for this project, submit to the awards. You never know what could happen. You could end up going on a trip to Miami, maybe. So yeah, the project was a success. So why do I feel like I shouldn't be here? So, I got this email saying, hey, we want to have you do a little talk. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Okay, this is great. And then I started making the talk, and I was like, shoot, I have to sound qualified enough to do this. Yikes. I have this evidence here that I was giving myself for why I should actually be here. My different research, data viz oriented research assistantships that I had just as an undergrad. And we all know getting a job as an undergrad in general is difficult. So it's pretty cool that I had 3. I have my project shortlisted for the Information is Beautiful Awards. And then, I have the emails of someone literally asking me to do it. So I knew that they did actually want me to be here. But still, my brain is going, okay, yeah, but you're not good at code. You don't have that many data viz portfolio pieces. You don't have very complex projects compared to other people. You kind of don't have your, not sure if I'm allowed to curse, my crap together. But, yeah, basically a bunch of blah, blah, blah happening in my brain. But, in the process of getting this presentation together, we've now reached the meta part of this presentation where I talk about the creation of the presentation. I kind of sat with myself and said, okay, hey, let's break this down. Okay, you're not good at code. Sure, maybe at least not yet. If I really wanted to be, I think if I sat down and learned, I could get good at code if I wanted to. But also, I have this graphic design background that gives me these important visual sensibility tools that other people may not have. I was watching the Q&As with an expert that DVS also has published, which I recommend. And I really liked Jason Forrest had this list of his takeaways for his talk. And one of them was quality work is a team sport. And he was talking about how, with a lot of these larger projects, you have a bunch of different people with different backgrounds coming together. And that's really how the best work comes about, is different people with different skill sets bringing their knowledge together. So, me not being the best at code doesn't mean that I don't have a lot of different skills that I can bring to the table when working on projects. Okay, I don't have that many data viz portfolio pieces, but yeah, I just graduated. Of course I don't. I don't think anyone expects me to either. My projects aren't as complex as other people's. Yeah, because the projects I've been working on were things I was doing mostly by myself or with the help of professors. It confined to semesters or portions of semesters of college. So yeah, calm down, Annika. And I don't have my crap together. Nobody does. But I will say, if anyone in the chat wants to say that they do have their together, I can stop sharing and let you take over my presentation. But okay, I'm not hearing anything on my end about that, so I'm gonna keep going. So yeah, once again, this is all the process of me getting this presentation together, that this whole thought process happened. I wrote myself a whole little paper saying, hey, you actually are getting a lot of things done and maybe shouldn't dismiss that. I'm not going to make you read it all, but basically it ended with, so stop comparing yourself to other people and just keep doing things. Experience is the best classroom, and you have plenty of time to develop new skills and learn new things. So my takeaways for my final meta project, which is this presentation, you can get the achievements and still not feel qualified. So don't wait for results to be nice to yourself. And no one has their together. So when you look at all the different takeaways I have, you might be thinking, okay, it's a little bit a live, laugh, love-esque, something that you would see on a middle school guidance counselor's posters. Fair enough. But for you cynics out there, I have one final little takeaway that might counter or give perspective to that thought. It's this quote, "Wisdom is not communicable," by Harman Hesse from Siddhartha. And I love this quote. "Wisdom is not communicable. The wisdom which a wise man tries to communicate always sounds foolish. Wisdom can be communicated, but not knowledge can be communicated, but not wisdom. One can find it, live it, do wonders through it, but one cannot communicate and teach it." And the goal of me putting this quote here is not to call myself a wise person. The point is that, I can give all these takeaways and I can show a couple different tools and skills I have. But the best thing for, getting your together is to just do stuff and find your own takeaways. That's always, the best way to learn. So yeah, thank you. And I guess, we're ready for the Q&A now.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, Annika. It was very inspiring to see the elementary stages that led to the IIB project and eventually you sharing your process with us. So it's really, really cool to see what you've done. And like you said, at this point, we can now get into our Q&A time. So for those people in the chat, please feel free to write your questions in the chat and we'll do our best to get your questions and then ask Annika. So for our first question, just to get the ball rolling, as people are writing in the chat, I love the idea of documenting the process and sharing that in a video format. And you do such an amazing job at that. In the age of AI, how important is it for creators to show that behind the scenes with people?
You know what? That I mentioned AI, of course, talking about ChatGPT and everything, and I do think it's really your answer for any question about AI. Like, wait a couple months and maybe you'll change your mind.
Right.
But I think for people who are looking for that like human centeredness or that human process, the ability to sort of show how you created things is a great way to show your hand in the process. And really, like, I know when I see behind the scenes things, it definitely connects me to the person or the designer as well. So makes that connection to the actual person who's making the project stronger. And of course, yeah, also if you're trying to prove that you did something, having that process there is a great way to do that too.
Right. No, thank you so much for that. That's very insightful. Let me see if anyone has written any question in the chat. But yeah, it looks like people might still be thinking. So maybe I'll add another question there. So I guess the question that I will ask from my perspective, if you were to do anything differently with your project, what would you do and why?
So, whenever I am making these projects, my favorite part of a design project is always the ideation phase and just thinking
Right.
of the different applications or deliverables that I can make with a project. And I'll often have a lot of different ideas for, oh, I could do this while I'm going with the project as well. One thing that I would love to do with this project in the future is make some more interactive elements. So actually, I have the book with me right now. But I have those visuals like the words throughout. I would love to have a way to, overlay them on top of each other, either as a digital format. That would be great. And also just more sections, more different content. Yeah.
Right. No, that's really helpful. I like that. I like that you're thinking of continuing to do something more with the project. Yeah, so I think we have another question. So by right, are there other data viz tools you like using or want to try?
Yeah, so I for one to try, I'm gonna focus there. There's so many like different ones that I want to get into. I mentioned P5 a lot, of course, and I would love to, take some courses and get a little bit more comfortable with working on that on my own. Get into Tableau and things like that. And then for other tools, I don't know that this counts as like a tool for making data viz, but I love just consulting my books. My books are my greatest tool. That's always been my thing. Whenever I'm looking for inspiration or research, I love going to the library or, I buy way too many books. So it makes sense that the project that got me here is a book itself.
Right. No, that's really amazing. Yeah, I never knew you could do that, so that's pretty cool. I think we can go to Annika. You have a namesake there in the chat. So she's asking,
Great.
or they're asking, any tips for people wanting to start off in the data viz world? I think that's what they're asking. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's, generic advice, but getting involved in the community in any way um, is the best. For me, that started at school. I wasn't going to school for data viz specifically, but I put it out there to people that it was something that I was interested in. And since I was just like an engaged student generally, that's how I ended up getting those positions as an undergrad, where I was able to apply this thing that I had let people know I was interested in. Um, and yeah, then of course, I wouldn't have been here at this talk if I hadn't submitted my work to the IIB awards. So just putting yourself out there in any ways you can. You know, everyone says it, but networking is is important. But you don't have to think of it as the boring, just talking to people, just to talk to people. Just share things you're interested in with people and go to events that seemed cool to you, and you never know who you're going to get to talk to there. So that would be my tip.
Right. Yeah. No, community has a very special place for us as the database society, and it's something that we know we value. So thank you for that reminder. I think we can go to, I think it's Ahia. Sorry if I'm butchering the name. So they say, I saw your work, which contains huge number of data words. While working with mass data, like a data set with more than 5,000 rows, creating visual infographics from it might consume much time. So they ask which tools you found helpful while working on such projects when you need a running visual on such data.
Yeah, so that was definitely, my big struggle coming into this project, not having a lot of, different tools in my tool set yet, uh, with working with these large amounts of text and not really having done like textual analysis before. So for this specifically, the large amounts of text, I really do recommend MaxQDA. And I have my article with them. I probably sound like I'm sponsored by MaxQDA at this point, but I do think it's really really intuitive interface. They also have a lot of online tutorials and things like that to help you get used to the software. But yeah, just the ability to go in and code different sections of words, or break down your document. And they also have all these visual tools and things like that. um, you know you need to have some sort of automation there when you are working with such a large amount of information. Um, so yeah, I definitely recommend MaxQDA for that.
Right. No, that's great. When you were speaking, you were just reminding me of my experience when looking at various tools and going to their documentation. And then you'll find that the documentation isn't very easy to understand or user-friendly. So I'm glad that you had that experience with MaxQDA. Yeah, I think we have another question from Renee Walker. So the question is, what would be your next data viz project if you got to choose your own topic?
So I actually have like a project that I have in mind that if I get time, um, I want to work on. So I'm currently auditing a critical thinking class at Gettysburg College. I graduated in the spring from Jefferson, and the idea of not being a student, I wasn't a fan of that. So I decided to audit a class. Um, and yeah, the big focus of this critical thinking class is we're going over all of the different logical fallacies and things like that. And I think I want to make a kind of flow chart going, where you can break down an argument and see which logical fallacy, if any, are being used. Um, And I've seen like little like versions of this that exist out there, but you know, they're not very like interactive or very aesthetically pleasing. So love to make a kind of new version of that that's more like your own journey to breaking down an argument rather than just a general display of these different fallacies. So that's my answer for that.
It's really impressive. Yeah. I think we have another. I think this might be a question. Um, yeah, I think it's more of like a comment mixed with a question. But so we have a person saying, "I love your work. You know the strength you have in being from a design background. I feel like we emphasize code a lot, and I find the design aspect the part that trips me up a lot. I'm curious what you see from a design expert lens as designing fundamentals that people coming from the more code math background could focus on learning to help us bridge the design and other aspects of Viz. I see this as important in community to do the work of working together. So what do you think about that?
That's a great question. I think honestly on the slide that I showed of the fundamental skills that I learned as a graphic designer, those ones that I put there are things that I think are really important for people to look at. And, you know, things like Gestalt principles, just the ideas, ways you're laying out information, color theory, making sure that you are uh, making these colors differentiate enough from each other that they're accessible to a bunch of different people. Typography, of course, is a big one for graphic designers. So any like introductory like type lessons, graphic designers will appreciate if you can tell them the difference between a font and a typeface or something like that. But yeah, I do think it is great when we can have like this community coming together and sharing these different skills, and appreciate the nice comments as well. Thank you.
Right. No, thank you for that. I think we have a question by Cedric over here. So the question is, I'm struck by the careful use of space in all of your intermezzo graphics. Could you walk us through your process for deciding how to lay things out?
Yeah. So, I mean, the process is a lot of testing. That's the best way to say it. Um, so I showed like little sections, and honestly, the whole layout of the book is a whole portion of the project that I didn't get to talk about as much from the presentation. But of course, especially graphic design background, it's a big part of the process. So I start typically with either paper sketches or sketches digitally on Illustrator, or both kind of at the same time. And once I have like a basic setup figured out, I will bring that over into InDesign. And you talked about the spacing and everything. I was really focusing on giving a lot of breathing room to the visuals and just letting the visual be the focus. Luckily for this project, it was, and I wasn't confined to, company telling me how many pages I was allowed to use. I was able to give it a lot of this breathing room. But yeah, I gave myself really, really nice wide margins on my text there. But in terms of figuring out like the minute details of the text size, it's a lot of trial and error, printing out different tests, looking at it, getting little feedback of, okay, maybe let's move this up here. Let's, have this text on this page aligned to this. Lots of just granular modification, just back and forth.
Right.
So, mhm.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, it's like the testing, it's like the dirty work, you know, you really have to go through the small details. And I'm even curious, maybe to build on that question, how long did it take you to go from idea to your complete project, out of curiosity?
I think I want to say it was probably around a month. Think it probably took a month. So yeah, it was yeah, a semester project, maybe like a month and a half. Um, uh, but yeah, it was a semester project, and we had two other projects that we were running as well. So the first part of the semester, I was working on this other project, and then this project was running in conjunction with another project. 6 weeks. Okay, thank you, Renee. Yeah, so yeah, close to a month and a half. Um, so yeah, it's really quick turnaround. And then, of course, at the same time, I was working on the rest of my classes and getting my thesis project uh, prepared, getting ready to start my end of college. So there's a lot going on. Very quick turnaround. So it was a lot of time spent sitting in the studio. Yeah, I remember sitting there in the studio just transcribing my Excel sheet, getting getting all of the text together. It was definitely a lot of work, but I think it paid off well.
Yes, I mean, for sure, that's really, really incredible. Um, I think we might have a little bit of room for one more question, aside from the question that I have here. So, the question that I have, especially for us in early career, we have been thinking about this, discussing this, and we wanted to know what words of advice would you give to someone who's starting out in the data viz space, and struggling whether they should participate in the IIB challenge?
Well, first I'll bring it back to my presentation. Just submit, just do it. I mean, it's free, right? I don't remember. If you're a student, um, uh,
I think it should be. I think
I,
it,
I'm,
yeah, I
I
might need
think
to find out.
yeah, not certain on that, but it's at least wasn't expensive. I know that at least for me as a student, there wasn't this barrier of cost there. It was just a barrier of me thinking, well, is my project worth submitting? That was the real barrier that I had to face there. And you know, uh, just submit the project. You never know, and it might not get on the short list. I had another project that I submitted
Mm,
that didn't get on the short list. Of course, not every project can, and I didn't win on the short list either. Like I'll mention that,
right.
but just even just from being on the long list, you're seeing your project next to all of these other projects that people are submitting, and you get to see all these different ways that people are thinking about data viz and what it is, and these different
Mm,
projects that people are doing. So, you know, you get to like have this little badge that brings you closer to, all these other people that like, oh, hey, I submitted too. Um, and I don't know, I'm just going to emphasize that community aspect. Um, Something I'm definitely going to focus on more in the future is looking at the Slack channel. I got in when I was in the process of doing this, but it looks very lively in there. Like there's a lot of uh, people sharing interesting things. So, um, yeah, I think that would be a great place to start, is just getting involved in the community. And there's also, all these different like courses and classes and things like, if maybe you're not trying to do a specific program, but there's always, YouTube University out there too for you.
exactly. Yeah, that's really, really amazing. You just reminded me the importance of trying something out, because when you try something out, that's when you start to notice where you could have done better. So even from, um, I guess, moments when we don't make things work or make it to where we wanted to make it, it does show us and does help us improve, especially if you reflect and go through everything. And yes, we have the Slack channel right there. I don't know if you can see the link to the Slack channel. So please do join our Slack channel, and you see what Annika is talking about, how lively we are. Maybe before we close, do you have any closing remarks, anything that's burning on your chest that you'd like to um, share with people as we part?
Um, no, I just thank you for having me. As I mentioned, there was a little bit of a mental battle for me going on. But it is great, when I got the shortlist award, um, I might have been surprised, but it was very validating to see that, this project that I made as a student, made it there with all of these other amazing projects that people are working on. Um, and yeah, it's great to be able to share my experiences with everybody. And if you have any other questions, of course, feel free to message me on uh, LinkedIn or my socials. Talk about any of my other projects there. Be happy to talk more. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for coming. Congratulations on making the shortlist. It's really incredible, especially as an early career person. It's something that we value and really do appreciate. So thank you very much for taking the time. And for everyone else, thank you for joining. Don't forget to follow Annika on these various platforms. I think, yeah, we can see them right below our screen there. There's LinkedIn and IG in case you want to also see her behind the scenes. So, uh, just a few closing remarks. Don't forget to check out the rest of our upcoming events on the DVS Eventbrite page. So you can see the link right there. We have two more events this month. Our next event is our IIB Spotlight Series. So yes, we still have another one coming up this coming Friday on October 24th at 4 p.m. UCT. Would love to see you there. Please do come through. We have a really amazing speaker, just like Annika. Then after that, we have our next Data Craft Circle on October 26th at 3 p.m. UCT. So would love for you to come through. So thank you everyone for joining. Please don't forget to subscribe. Please don't forget to go to the Eventbrite and register for these events. So from the DVS team and everyone, thank you so much for joining us.